Welcome, everyone. Best Available Podcast, episode 45. We're actually doing this early in the day for the first time. I don't know, maybe since NFL season. I think the clock still says AM, and I can't remember the last time it said AM when we did one of these. So that's exciting. We have a nice, beautiful day outside. I'm excited to go out after I do this. It's just the sky is blue. We got sun coming in. It's such a beautiful day. Which is good because I had an awful day yesterday, so I'm glad that the weather has brightened my mood. So before we get into what we need to talk about, Matt, with the process being dead, and we're going to talk about another tier list this week because that was fun to do last week. How are you feeling here? I know you're excited because you have your Euro championship that you've been keeping up with. We got a game starting soon, so how are you doing over there?
Yeah, so really exciting time to be a soccer fan. The Euros are always a really, really fun and exciting tournament. Not to brag, but the Italians look really good. Look like we're going to really make a push for the, not only, deep into the round of 16, but, get close to the final. Looking really solid. You mentioned a nice day. I'm going to go out for a nice little drive later in preparation for some family fun tomorrow at the FC Monmouth game, so little plug there for anyone that wants to come out the last time we get to do it at home before I have to drive to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So that'll be fun. But Ryan, the process, RIP. I don't know how you can recover from that, but I know we'll talk about it. We had a big postponement this week as well. I know you're going to mention that as well, but yeah, we've had a nice couple of days of weather after those crazy thunderstorms early on in the week.
We're going to get into the NBA and stuff in a second, but I do have to come out and say that I apologize. I lied on the podcast last week. I said the next time we record, we will be able to talk about the mini golf match between myself and Glenn DeNegris, and unfortunately, the day got postponed. The forecast was not looking promising the day before, and so the next day, of course, it was a great day to go out and mini golf, but Glenn had said that he had taken on other responsibilities, so he could unfortunately not make it on Monday after taking on responsibilities because of that weather forecast. And I need to get something out there. You talk about me being scared. You talk about me having a lot of excuses. Oh, Ryan, I better not hear any excuses out of you with the afternoon shadows, this and that. I think Glenn's ducking me. I think he can feel the fear. I think he's nervous. You all have been talking him up for months saying, oh, this guy's the Michael Jordan of golf, this and that. Well, now I think he's scared. He has a lot to live up to. I don't think he wants to do the match anymore, personally. As I said, I'm going to say it again. It doesn't matter who wins. All that matters is that we have a good day with the fellas. But I really do think he's scared. I don't think he wants to smoke at the mini golf course. I think that's why he took on other responsibilities. He didn't even want to take the chance. That's how I see it.
It's a big-time conspiracy coming out of the group chat this week because we were all pretty much down to still run it on Monday, and then Glenn took on those responsibilities. I didn't know you took such an issue with it. I do think that you're starting to gain some momentum, though, at the sports books in terms of whether or not he still has a big advantage. I will say that lead is narrowing a little bit. So the media is starting to speculate around Glenn. He's got to come out after he listens to this and make a statement. We still got to get this going. I really want to get out and have a day with the boys. As you said, that's all that matters is a day with the boys. Long overdue. Ever since Carson Wentz and Josh McCown lost to the Seattle Seahawks, that was the last day with the boys. So it's been a while, but yeah, I was a little bummed out that the weather changed so quickly. What did your weather guy? I know you got a weather guy. What was he saying the night before? What were we expecting the rain to just go away magically?
I wasn't really looking at that, to be honest with you, but It is unfortunate because it took us so long to figure out a day that worked for all of us that we finally had one, and then unfortunately we couldn't play. I'm going to keep reiterating it. If Glenn wins or when I win, none of that matters. It's just going to be nice to see the boys again for the first time in about a year and a half. But I do agree. The sports books have noticed the lines have changed, and there's more momentum on my side after my opponent ducked me because he didn't want to play because he was scared. That's, it is what it is. So hopefully we have some updates about that mini golf match in the future. Hopefully it doesn't take us another 2 months to set a day because one of the guys is scared, but we'll cross that path when we get to it. We talked about a tier list last week that best available player members, Jill Young and Justin Garcia, put together. Last week they did fast food restaurants on the East Coast. This week they did best cereals, and if I remember, I'll put a picture up. And this one, Matt, was not as egregious. I think we both agreed. I watched it while it was happening. It was not as egregious. I will say, you talked about how you didn't have any issues with the S tier. Reese's Puffs were a dividing factor on Monday night when they were putting this tier list together. Jill and the rest of the chat was saying that it is for sure an S tier cereal. Justin and myself tried to fight the good fight and say that they're overrated, but unfortunately they did end up in the S tier. Sometimes you have to make compromises. So I'll ask you, because this was a big deal on Monday night. What are Reese's Puffs to you? Are they an S tier cereal, or do you think that maybe it should be a couple rings down on the tier list?
So first off, I think both of us need to apologize to Jill. She was not very happy with us last week after we shredded their list. I was not able to catch it for a second straight week. Next week, when they do whatever they decide to do, I will be there in the chat, active on it. But in any case, I agree with Jill on this one. Reese's Puffs, I would even make the case, and I would love to know Jill's opinion on it. You could put it above the S tier. I think that it's by far the most culturally impactful cereal that you can have, the most versatile. You can have it any time. It's always going to taste the same, reliable. It's by far the best cereal that you can ever eat.
You're right.
And I'm not a big cereal guy.
Same. It's going to taste like dog's ass. That's what it's going to taste like. It's not a breakfast item.
Right.
It does.
Right.
It tastes awful. Why do people
peanut
like it?
butter
I don't
and
understand.
chocolate? Peanut butter and chocolate is one of the best duos in history, right?
I agree.
So then if you agree, then it's peanut butter and chocolate cereal.
No,
that's literally...
No. See, that's where I draw the line at Reese's Puffs, because a nice Reese's cup or something like that, that's a great combination of peanut butter and chocolate. This, it doesn't work. It tastes like...
Why doesn't it work? The milk adds a whole other dimension to it, too, when you put it in there.
It makes it all... Let me tell you,
what was Justin's reasoning? Do you remember Justin's reasoning? What was his reasoning for not having it up there?
I forget his exact reasoning, but he just me and him kind of agreed that it's not an S tier cereal, but you do have to make compromises, and so that's how it ended up in the S tier. Peanut butter and chocolate, I agree, it's one of my favorite flavor combinations out there. I just feel like with this specific breakfast cereal, it doesn't work. It's just too much to take in at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning when you have your whole day ahead of you. It just sits in you. It makes you feel awful. I'll come out and say it. It doesn't work. I thought it should be in the F tier, personally. I don't think it has ever worked. I think it's vastly overrated. There's just so many better options.
This is a painfully bad take, Ryan. It doesn't sit in you. It fills you up, which is what very few cereals do for me, right? I mean, the peanut butter right there gives you the fuel to go through the day. The chocolate adds a nice little bit there, so you're not getting all the peanut butter. And I don't eat cereal, right? How many times when we were living together at school did you see me eat cereal? Probably none, right? But whenever I will, it's usually Reese's, right? Because one of the few that won't just go in me and then I'll be hungry again in like 10 minutes. Like it's very good, very satisfying. I'm hashtag Team Jill on this one. I don't know how you could. This is like a staple in cereal, Ryan. This is literally. I mean, you talk about the S tier. I mean, the staple tier, right? I mean, a staple in everyone's pantry. You see the Reese's up there. I think they nailed the S tier personally. I don't think really any transactions need to be made at the top of that. I'm not the huge Frosted Flakes guy, but I understand why it's there, and I could get behind that. But I think they nailed it. I really do.
I'm looking at this list. I think there's at least 15 cereals I'm taking before I go to the Reese's Puffs box on the shelf. It's just
Name them.
all right. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Honey Nut Cheerios,
No,
Frosted Flakes.
don't count. The S tier doesn't count. It has to be below the S tier. What are you taking from below to replace Reese's with?
Honey Bunches of Oats, Frosted Mini Wheats, the 3 cocoa ones in the A tier, Cookie Crisp, Lucky Charms, Honeycomb, Kix. I'll even go with the regular Rice Krispies, Special K, Pops, the regular Cheerios, Corn Flakes. I think that's a good cereal every now and again. Regular Raisin Bran, I think is fine. I don't know how much that was, but I'm taking all of those over Reese's Puffs every day of the week, and I would not feel bad about it. You guys can keep your bad, overrated. The best part of this cereal was the commercials. That was the only redeeming quality. The cereal itself was god awful, but the commercials made everyone think it was really good and that you'd be a cool kid if you ate it. It doesn't work that way. The cereal itself just stinks.
I'm about to tank your entire argument with one swing here. So what's in Reese's, right? Name me the 2 pillars of Reese's.
You got chocolate.
Peanut butter.
And you got peanut butter.
No, chocolate, right? So chocolate. So when you just said the 3 cocoa ones right below it, what's the main ingredient in all 3 of those?
Well, no, those are different. No, those are different because they actually taste good.
Different?
It's
the same thing. What do you think? Chocolate tastes different?
No, it's not. It's completely different.
Chocolate is chocolate. I mean, and that's why peanut butter is peanut butter, right? I mean, it enhances the chocolate. Why would you want to just have all straight chocolate when you can add something in there to kind of take the edge off, have a little bit of both, right? The best of both worlds. Yeah, I don't know about this, Ryan.
Listen, I'm a big fan of like the Quaker Chewy peanut butter chocolate chip granola bar. Like that combination works if you want to have peanut butter and chocolate in the morning. Just the Reese's Puffs, it's just a whole bowl of bleh. It stinks. So
this is a bad take. You were going to put bland Rice Krispies over it too. I think they have that where it needs to be too. It's one of the blandest. You got to do something with it every time you have it. You can't just have Rice Krispies in a bowl. You got to add a little bit of sugar to it, strawberries, like some kind of fruit or something. You can't just have the bland things in the milk. I agree. Why would you bring that from I think they had it in the D tier all the way up to take over Reese's. This is not good, Ryan. I am # Team Jill. Yeah,
I will say, Jill, I did feel a little bad for Jill because she was getting flamed by the chat for some of her cereal opinions. So, let's bring it back. On the whole, this list, I can't say I have too many issues with. Maybe there's some that I would put one higher or one lower. It's not like the fast food one where we had a couple issues. But I just think Reese's Puffs being at S tier is just such an amateur move. Like that, it's like it feels like, you know what? I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. Just gonna keep that to myself.
What were you gonna say?
It's just I feel like if you put Reese's Puffs in the S tier of a cereal list, you're like 6 years old. Like that's something that
that's
if
the
you're
whole point.
6,
What is the major market? What is the major market for cereal? Kids. Right? I mean, when you're older, you know how to make like an actual breakfast, right? I mean, like when cereal's quick and easy, right? For people that are young like us, you have a bowl of cereal, then you go. When you're older, you don't really vibe with the cereal as much because it's sugary. I mean, I don't know. I've never been a cereal guy, but for different reasons. It's not for kids. Listen, that's the problem with our society, Ryan. I'm about to be a big philosopher here. We label things. It's like, oh, it's just for kids. Like, if you can't have a bowl of cereal because it's for 6-year-olds, right? If you enjoy it, eat it. Who cares, right? Who cares? We just made it through a once-in-a-century pandemic. If you want to have a 6-year-old cereal, right, Reese's, go for it. Who cares? Don't judge people, Ryan, because they want to have peanut butter and chocolate right when they wake up because it's the best flavor combination known to our existence.
I think this is the most contentious debate we've had in the 40-plus weeks of doing this podcast.
Ryan, some of your food takes have been up there, and I agree with you on a lot of last week's, but this week is starting to make it look a little questionable with this take. Hashtag Team Jill.
Let's move on to some sports. We're going to get off of this topic before I frustrate myself even more. Justin, if you ever listen to this, I'm with you, buddy. Reese's Puffs are overrated. I don't think you hate them as much as I hate them. In fact, I know you probably don't. But they should not be in the S tier. Let's talk about the NBA. We're going to move from one thing that pissed me off to, I guess, another thing that pissed me off. I don't know why we're doing that. The 76ers, we're going to start with them. Actually, we're going to talk about the other stuff first, and then we'll save the Sixers for last. Matt, the Phoenix Suns swept the Nuggets. I forget if we talked about this. If we didn't talk about this already last week, I forget when the series ended. The Phoenix Suns are a good basketball team. The Nuggets are missing one of their best players and one of the better players in the league. Jokic couldn't do everything himself. You've been saying it for months. People should not sleep on the Phoenix Suns. I'm excited that they have gotten into the conference finals.
Yeah, it's something like first time since I want to say early middle school, Ryan, right? I mean, 2009, right, was the last time they were in the Western Conference Finals and they played the Lakers. So it's back when they had Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire. That was a really good team, by the way. But this team plays a little bit differently, but has one of, in my opinion, the best coaches in the league, one of the most respected coaches in the league, Monty Williams, one of the most respected players in the league, Chris Paul. Obviously, his availability for the first couple games of this series is up in the air. They talked about it on Inside the NBA last night. Check that out. They kind of planned it out how he could return quickly. But in any case, Devin Booker's crazy, right? This guy, for those who didn't know he exists because he played on those bad Suns teams, well, now you do know he exists and he's really good. Yeah, Phoenix is legit. I really wouldn't be surprised if they made it to the finals. The way they play, the depth they have on the bench, like the resurgence of guys like Cameron Payne, right, who were pretty much almost out of the league a couple of years ago. And here he is now playing as a backup in a really big spot to a guy like Chris Paul and doing it very well. So it's a very good team. The Nuggets aren't going anywhere, right? They'll be back next year when Jamal Murray's healthy. Injury rates are right around the same, by the way. I want to preface this. That's been something that's been talked about the past couple of days. Injury rates are right around the same as past years. There's a lot of notable names injured, but it's unfortunate we don't get to see these guys in the playoffs, right? Or see them with one ankle like Donovan Mitchell. So Murray will be back next year. Him and Jokic together is awesome to watch. So I'm excited to see them next year. I think they'll be right back where they were this year, just even better.
I'm rooting for the Suns. They're the team that I'm rooting for now. Chris Paul, of course, is in the COVID protocols, but he's vaccinated, and I would be very surprised if he missed more than one game in the conference finals. I think that he'll be fine. He and the Suns are going to play the winner of the Utah Clippers series, and you talk about injuries. There's a big one that occurred in this series when Kawhi, they feared that he has torn his ACL, so he missed Game 5. It didn't matter. Paul George had one of his best games in recent memory. He really helped carry the Clippers to a W over a tough Utah team, who, of course, as you mentioned, are dealing with their own injury issues. And Matt, it seems like this might be the Clippers' year. I think a Suns-Clippers conference finals could be a lot of fun. Of course, I was rooting for the Jazz. I've always wanted the Jazz to do well. I love Quinn Snyder. I love the team they put together, but I still feel like the Clippers have enough talent, especially with Paul George leading the way, to win this series. I wouldn't be surprised if they won it in 6 games. I think that's entirely possible.
Well, I think a lot of people forget that the Clippers have guys like Rondo and DeMarcus Cousins just sitting there on the bench. So the veteran presence and playoff experience, it's not like it all disappeared once Kawhi got hurt, right? I mean, obviously that's a huge injury, and it sucks that we have another injury in the playoffs, but I mean, they have guys, they have names, right? They have household names on that team. I was really happy for playoff P last night. He took a lot of heat in the bubble last year. A guy who I think a lot of people kind of forget literally snapped his leg in half and came back to an all-star level, right? So I think it's easy for people to criticize guys like him, Gordon Hayward. They both came back and played at really high levels. You say, oh, well, you can't put Gordon Hayward in there. Go look at his stats when he played as opposed to when the Hornets didn't have him, and you'll see the impact he had this year for them. Back to the Clippers. They've never made a Western Conference Finals, Ryan. It's crazy to think when your boy Doc was there, and my boy too, my guy Doc was there, that they never made it, right? They had to deal with the Warriors. They had to deal with the Spurs. We will get an exciting, good story in the finals if that's the Western Conference matchup between Phoenix and the Clippers, a team that we haven't seen. I mean, it's not going to be Steph Curry, not going to be LeBron, not going to be Greg Popovich. So for the first time, really, since we were like in diapers, we're going to have a team that isn't one of those three that I just named.
People like to clown on Ty Lue a lot, and I do kind of get it, but I hope people kind of realize that, I mean, this is my opinion. You can share what you think, but I do think the guy's a good coach. Like, I don't think, like, obviously it's easy to look good when you had LeBron on your team, but I really do think that the guy is a smart basketball mind. I think from an X's and O's perspective, he kind of knows what works and what doesn't. And I think, especially in this series, I think we're kind of starting to see just how smart he is. That's just my opinion.
I mean, there's a reason why LeBron really wanted him to be a head coach, right? And when LeBron really vouches for you, that should be a good indicator of your abilities as a coach. He used to be a Celtics guy. I'm familiar with him back when he was on Doc's staff in Boston. Yeah, he's a good coach. He's part of the needs more respect category, right up there with guys like Michael Malone, right up there with, as I mentioned, Monty Williams. You know, everyone's going to hit on Ty Lue just because of the fact that he ran into the Warriors all those years, right, when he was with Cleveland. So give the guy a break, and he's managing a lot of personalities here in LA too. I think that's what makes him a good coach, is the fact that he can manage guys like DeMarcus Cousins, Rajon Rondo, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, all on the same team at once. It's what he did in Cleveland. So he'll get his respect eventually, but people in the NBA or casual NBA fans, they'll just look at the fact that he lost a couple times to Steph Curry in the finals.
Moving over to the Eastern Conference, Kevin Durant once again proving why he's one of the best players on the planet. He looked incredible.
Ryan, change that sentence. That sentence should be the best player in the world right now.
Listen, I'm just, there could be somebody in some country that we don't know about, so I don't want to disrespect that person who may or may not exist. But he looked really good in Game 5. I really thought the Bucks had that one, especially because Harden kind of struggled in his return. But Durant just he put the team on his back, which is not surprising. And for all this praise that I gave Milwaukee coming into the postseason, I could see that it was all for nothing because this team as currently constructed is not a title contender. I know they're going up against a solid team in Brooklyn, but it's just okay. Number one, Brooklyn's very good. I'll get that take out there. Number two, it's very disappointing to see Milwaukee once again struggle like this in the postseason.
Yeah, so Durant's the best player in the world right now. I know LeBron's up there too, but just Durant, I think a lot of people forgot because of when he got hurt, what kind of level he was playing at before he got injured, and he's right back there, and even more so. They would have been fine if Harden took another game to rest, honestly. I really love Kevin Durant. Represents all the skinny kings out there, right? Me being one of them, right? He gives me hope that I can be a decent basketball player. He's really fun to watch, and a lot of people, him playing in the same era that LeBron does really doesn't help. But yeah, Kevin Durant, loved watching him play. Missed him when he was out. Even when he was on the Warriors, obviously the popular take, we know someone who really hates the Warriors, right? a Cleveland Cavaliers fan who really did not like the Warriors or Kevin Durant. I'm okay with it when he went there. But in any case, happy for him now. I think the combo of him and Harden is good enough, right? And the fact that they have Kyrie there too. Obviously, I'm a Celtics fan, but adds another dimension if he could come back. But yeah, Brooklyn's really good. Shocker to anyone out there. But then Milwaukee, really disappointed to see people calling for Budenholzer to get fired. It's really not his fault, right? I mean, it's not his fault that Giannis can only drive to the basket. It's not his fault that one of his really solid role players got hurt and is out for the playoffs. The guy got results in Atlanta. He's getting results in Milwaukee, right? Two markets that haven't really historically won anything in our lifetimes. And he won 60 games in Atlanta a couple times, had a couple All-Stars there. Same thing in Milwaukee, right? Another place that hasn't really done anything in our lifetime. So it's not Budenholzer's fault. Just because the casual NBA fan doesn't know who Mike Budenholzer is doesn't mean they need to go and call for his job. It's not his fault, in my opinion. There's guys you could go out and get to enhance that roster, really like Phoenix did, right? I mean, we saw when Phoenix was like one guy away. Milwaukee's the same way. They just need to go out and get more shooters or find a way to have Giannis on the floor. In that way, you could kind of adjust to the fact that he can't really shoot from the outside. It's just minor adjustments, I think.
Well, from one star that can't shoot to, I'm not even going to call him a star, a player that can't shoot. The Sixers are down 3-2 to the Atlanta Hawks. They blew a 26-point lead. In fact, I think with 15 minutes left, they were still up by 18, and they found a way to completely collapse. The process is, I mean, you can make the argument the process has been dead for a while, and now we're kind of just seeing if it worked, but this was a debilitating loss to watch as a Sixers fan that sat through the process, that really just held on to the hope that all of this would be worth it, that we found the players. And at the process, the result was you thought you had two superstars to build a title contending team around, and now it's very clear that you only have one superstar and you need more pieces. I think that was the overall big message that came out of game number 5. You don't have Embiid and Simmons as your two stars. You have Embiid, and that's it.
Yeah, so we've seen some games kind of take a turn south before, right? But 26 points in the second half is a new level. Ryan, I've been trying to tell you that Ben Simmons is a good player, but in today's NBA, he really kind of plugs things up. You said, to your credit, you were defending your guy. You said, Ryan, he's going to figure it out. He's going to get a shot. You can't have, in today's NBA, you can't have your starting point guard attempt 4 shots, right? And then he went, 4 of 14 from the free throw line? Can't have that either. I know people are going to cite Joel missing the 2 free throws at the end of the game. The guy has one leg he's playing on, so I don't really knock him for those. But your offense gets plugged up right from the start because you could play 4-on-5 because you don't have a shooting threat as your primary ball handler. I told you, or I told the group chat last night, the reason why Monmouth men's basketball is so successful from 2015 to 2017 was because Justin Robinson could bring the ball up and he could shoot. You had to play him as soon as he came over half court because he could pull up. And when you have the guy come all the way out to almost half court to guard him, that opens up so much on the inside. Someone could cut to the basket. Someone could shoot out for a 3-point shot off a screen. You can't do that right now with the Sixers. And that creates a little bit of a logjam when you have your best player down in the post because there's going to be so much traffic down there because you don't have to play for the shot for Simmons. So I don't know what you could get for him on the trade market. I don't think Philly's going to want to part with him either. I think they're going to still try and press the gas forward.
I disagree. I think they're going to want to part with him, but I don't know what value he has. He's a max contract player who every other GM isn't an idiot. They can watch the same things that even the most casual fans can see, is that this guy, when he's out on the floor on the offensive end, you're playing 4v5, he takes the ball up past half court, maybe sometimes he'll do a little jog past half court, he hands it off or he passes it off, then he just stands in the dunker spot and he's not involved at all in the offense. You have a guy out there that doesn't even do anything. I think I saw a stat. It was either this entire postseason or the fourth quarter of the postseason games, he has a lower usage rate than Dwight Howard and Danny Green. The only guy he had a higher usage rate was Matisse Thybulle. Like, that's unacceptable, especially for a max contract player like Ben Simmons. If you can't put the ball in this guy's hands late in the game, if you're scared to do that, there's an issue. Like, that's not normal. And as I said, I think they're going to try to trade him, but I don't know what his value is. I see Sixers fans saying, oh, we got to trade this guy and whatever else for Damian Lillard. You're not going to trade Ben Simmons and whatever package of shit that you want to throw at him for Damian Lillard. That's not how this is going to work. Like, if you're an NBA GM, why would you want to trade for this guy that can't do anything offensively in an offensive-based league? Like, it's great that he's good defensively, but I think it's just very funny. Kyle Neubeck made this point in Philly Voice. This guy was touted as the next Magic. This guy was touted as the next LeBron. He was going to be this transcendent talent. But now the comparisons have gone down to, well, he could be a Draymond Green type player on a championship team. Like, that's where we've gotten to at this point.
Ryan, Draymond Green can shoot. I think that's a disrespect to
that
Draymond
too. Like,
Green.
at least he still runs around. He can still try to, like, initiate offense a little bit. Like, Ben doesn't even do that.
Draymond Green, that's an insult to Draymond Green, whoever made that point out there on the Twitterverse. But I could think of a couple places where you could send Ben, Ryan. I don't know what you're going to get back, though. You're not gonna get back what you've invested in him, unfortunately. You sound like a business major right now. You're not going to get a return on investment at all, wherever you send them. And I'll tell you off the air where I think he could probably go, but I don't really think that you're going to get much of anything in return. Teams are probably just going to do you a favor to get that contract off the books. But yeah, I don't. Draymond, if you put Draymond Green on the Sixers and take off Simmons, I think that instantly enhances the team. Right? I mean, but they're two totally different players. Listen, he could defend pretty well, right? I mean, obviously he's made that clear. He is a good passer, I guess, but Magic was a threat offensively on top of being a good passer. That's what made him so good. LeBron, very good passer, but also can shoot, right? I mean, that was a knock on him early on in his career, but he developed a shot. Right? Especially from the outside and at the free throw line. LeBron wasn't much of a three-point shooter for a while, and then he developed a three-point shot, and now he's pulling up from almost half court. But I think the one red flag, Ryan, I don't know if you saw it, could have been before Game 4, Game 5, I don't really remember. The shot of him warming up from, I don't even know if it was the elbow, it might have been closer than that, and he was bricking everything off the glass. Did you see that video? In warm-ups. From 10 feet out, if that.
The problem, too, is, like, it's so... There's times, as I said, when you take him off the court just because you don't want him out there clogging up the offense. Well, the problem when this team in and of itself isn't constructed very well because Simmons, unfortunately, is the only guy on this roster that can dribble and that can pass at a good level. So when you take him off the floor, well, now you don't have that out there. So I do think they're going to trade him. I don't think Morey is an idiot. I do think that he sees the same thing everybody else does. He sees that this isn't working. He sees that this team needs a change. I have a pretty good idea about maybe a realistic option that they could get. They're not going to get Lillard for Simmons. I think everybody just needs to get that out of their head so they're not let down when the trade package does happen. One guy is an all-NBA, MVP caliber type player. The other guy is far from that. So let's just get that out of there right now. I hope they lose on Friday. I can't do this season anymore. I just had such high expectations, and then just they blew an 18-point lead in Game 4. They blew a 26-point lead in Game 5. I can't do this anymore. I hope the season ends on Friday. I cannot do a Game 7 with this team. It doesn't even matter. Like, people are talking about the Bucks and how they kind of choked away their opportunity. At least they lost to Kevin Durant. You know, like, who did the Sixers lose to? Like, no disrespect to Trae Young, but he's not Kevin Durant. You don't blow a 26-point lead to Trae Young. You don't do that. Not as the 1 seed. Not at home.
Yeah, well, a place where Philly, this season and really over the past couple of years has played historically very well at, right? The Wells Fargo Center. And then to see 26 points evaporate like that, especially in the fourth quarter, was kind of surprising. I've been pounding my fist for a while, really ever since you guys lost to the Celtics back when we were in college. Bench depth is key. I mean, if you're going to roll with Simmons, that's fine, but you're going to need some bench depth, or at least some more primary ball handlers. Ryan, I bet if you put Kemba Walker on this team, it would look really solid. I mean, even with Kemba's knee issues, right? I mean, maybe Brad will do you a favor and send them over to you guys. Like a guy like Kemba is what your team needs. He could pull up, right? He could dribble right up the court. He could pass the ball pretty well. He's got good enough speed considering his knee is not the best right now. But you need a guy like that. You're not going to get Lillard. If you're trading Simmons, I don't even think you're really going to get a star player in return. You're going to get draft picks and then a couple bad contracts to equal it out. That's what you're going to get, realistically. Right? I mean, the only way to move a max contract is to bring over a lot of money back, and what star players out there are you going to get for equivalent value? I can't think of any.
The only one that I think could happen, I'm saying could. I'm not going to put a percentage on it. Maybe you could get CJ McCollum. Maybe. But I think that's your absolute best case scenario. I think that's the best type of player you could hope to get for him. And even then, I don't know.
I don't think Portland's going to part with either of those guys until they hire a head coach and they figure out what direction they want to go into. I mean, that would be great. But at that point, if they're trading McCollum and they're keeping Lillard, what does bringing in Simmons do for them? Right? Lillard's the primary ball handler, so now you're just going to have a guy stand in the corner. So you're in a tough spot. You really are. You could have moved them a couple years ago, like I told you. Could have got a couple of names, maybe some draft picks, but there's some teams that'll take them. You could get some solid draft picks, but you're not going to get a player in return. I really don't think you're going to get a star for star in this trade.
Let's move on to, let's stop talking about stuff that's going to upset me. You're very excited as a day one soccer fan about big Euro tournament. We actually, if you looked at our social media pages, we promoted the Euro tournament. So you have been watching it. So you go ahead. You can bring up what you've seen. I have seen very brief highlights on social media. People really seem to be into it this year, which I'm not too surprised about since it got postponed last year. I'm sure everybody was looking forward to it this year, and it seems like that's been the case. But you're really high on your boys from Italy, clearly. But just in general, what have you seen from the tournament?
Yes, your audio just cut out right there. I don't know what you said leading into it. Can you talk for a second?
What have you seen from the tournament?
Oh, okay. All right. So like 38 minutes that happened. All right. So yeah, Ryan, Euros have been great. One of my favorite tournaments, really outside of the World Cup. Obviously, we had a very scary moment on day 2 with Christian Eriksen. Thank God he's okay. I mean, I watched that live, and not too many people were really happy with the fact that the camera stayed on there as he was getting basically CPR on the field. The pitch. That's what happens when I go from sport to sport. But that was the world feed. That wasn't ESPN, to my knowledge. So they were taking a lot of heat, but it was really just this overall world feed. To Denmark's up 1-0 right now in Belgium, which would be a big result for them. Belgium, a really solid squad. As someone with a lot of Italian heritage, my squad is looking very solid right now, Ryan. They're going to get out of Group A, going to make a way really probably deep into the tournament. Had an older team a couple years ago, didn't qualify for a couple tournaments. They look pretty solid now with a little bit of a younger wave of players coming in. France looks really solid, Ryan. They played a big match the other day against Germany. France has said this to someone who I work with at FC Monmouth. They have basically every big name in the tournament. Germany, not the typical Germany that we're used to, so it's kind of weird seeing them in that position. But yeah, some teams to watch out for. I mean, even depending on how this result holds right now with Belgium and Denmark, but Belgium pretty solid. Italy looks really, really good. Obviously, France, really exciting. I mean, it's pretty much, if you're working from home still, or even if you're at an office, from 9 a.m. to basically 5 p.m., basically 9 to 5, you got soccer on, and it's some of, if not the best quality soccer in the world. So make sure to check it out. It's really worth the watch, especially if you're just doing stuff around the house. Throw a game on in the background. For the most part, really good commentators as well. Yeah, it's been really enjoyable to watch so far.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with all of the good points that you just brought up. The last soccer game I watched was the USA game when Twitter went ablaze because I saw people talking about it. I was like, okay, let me turn this on. And that was a lot of fun to watch. So that was the last time I had watched a soccer game. Of course, my Philadelphia Union just extended their head coach. The longest tenured head coach in the city of Philadelphia is the Union head coach, Jim Curtin. So congratulations. I tip my cap to you that you've survived so long in this city. So yeah, soccer is they're doing that soccer out there, which is great. I'm happy that they're able to do that soccer.
Ryan, we got to get you to a game, whether it be Major League Soccer or like an international game, or even FC. We got to get you to a non-college soccer game, and I think you would actually really enjoy it. Right? College soccer is a little bit different. I have my own opinions on college soccer, but we got to get you to like something, either at the semi-pro level, professional level. I think you would really enjoy it. I know you're making a face, but you're going to say, oh, they're running around for 0-0, all that stuff. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Portugal looked really, really good the other day too with Ronaldo. Obviously, if you log on to Twitter at any point when Portugal plays, you're going to know that they played because Ronaldo probably scored, and then every other tweet is about him. But Ryan, we got to get you out to a game or a match. Excuse me, again, switching sports. You would have fun. You would have fun at a soccer match.
Okay. Maybe one day you will see Ryan at a soccer match, cheering on all the action on the pitch.
I'll take you to one. You know where I'll take you? I know where I'll take you. This fall. So a nice cheap option to warm you into it, right? A cheaper option. I'll take you to one of the local leagues, right? And you'll really high quality soccer in our state, depending on which club you go to. The one we partnered with has some really good players. We'll take you there. You'll enjoy it, and then we'll work our way up. That's what we'll do. We'll work our way up the American soccer pyramid. We'll start like the NPSL, then we'll work up to USL2. We'll work all the way up, and you'll get to see everything. And then eventually it'll time up. We'll take you to a USA game. How's that sound?
Maybe. So that was soccer. Always good to get some different sports going. Tennis, Novak Djokovic won the men's French Open, which was one. It was kind of cool to see him take down Nadal on clay. I was not expecting to see that, but he just clearly he was in the zone. He did what he needed to do. Two, it was kind of upsetting to see Nadal fall. It was upsetting to see Federer withdraw. Federer actually just lost. I saw he lost a match yesterday, I think it was, or the day before. Apparently, he did not look very good. It is a little upsetting that these guys that we grew up with, just you can see Father Time starting to catch up. Nadal came out today and he said that he's going to skip Wimbledon and he's going to skip the Tokyo Olympics just because of his age. He thinks he needs this rest to just try to compete and be at the level he needs to be at. It's a little weird seeing these guys that seemed invincible finally kind of starting to have to take a step back because they just can't do what they used to be able to do.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of underestimate how taxing a tennis match can be, especially when you play almost every day in a tournament. And on top of that, all the practice that you do, the warm-ups, and do that for 20 plus years, even longer, 20 plus years at the professional level. So it's actually, they are kind of the outliers that they've played this well, this long at this level. I'm a big Federer guy. I'm not a big Djokovic guy. So you could have told me he won. I'd be like, whatever, good for him. But big Federer guy. Nadal, I kind of like as well. But yeah, it's weird. But we saw the same thing in golf with some of the older names in golf. They might start turning into how we reacted when Phil won a couple weeks ago, right? I mean, it's like, Federer won. You'll remember where you were if these guys win. Not now, obviously, but in the coming months and years as their careers continue to wind down. But again, not a big Djokovic guy for a number of reasons, so wanted to make sure that's out there. I like the other two, though.
I did want to bring up the women's French Open because I thought that had a lot of it was unprecedented isn't the right word, but if you take a look at the quarterfinals, the final eight women that were left, the highest seed there is an 8, and that was Iga Swiatek. You had two people that were unseeded. Coco Gauff made it to the quarterfinals, the American, which was pretty neat, but the number one seed Ashley Barty retired in the second round. Osaka, of course, withdrew. We know what happened there, and she was well within her right to do that, and I was very happy to see that she did. But an unseeded player ended up winning the French Open. Barbara Krejcikova won in 3 sets, 6-1, 2-6, 6-4 over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. I hope I pronounced that correctly, the 31 seed. It was pretty neat just to see that kind of wildness happen, just these lower seeded and in some cases the unseeded women just making it that far in a Grand Slam tournament. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's like the NCAA tournament, Ryan, with some upsets. Always nice to see those runs happen. Very, very concerning to see the crowd that came out on social media. Well, at least some people, when Osaka pulled out of the tournament. Not so great people wanted to comment on that, but for the most part, the sports community really rallied around her, which I was really happy to see. But yeah, it's always good to see some new names too. I think we're approaching that point in tennis, really on both men's and women's side, where we're starting to see some new names come in, which is cool in some ways. But I'm still gonna miss people like Serena, people like Federer. But I mean, eventually, it looks like Serena's daughter is just gonna do exactly what she did. I mean, they're posting pictures, posing the same way in the same outfit. Hopefully that happens because then I'll just get Serena Williams 2.0 for another 20 years because she's one of my favorite athletes to watch. I know I'm taking your point and just running in a different direction, but yeah, it's always tough for me to watch anything other than the U.S. Open, Ryan, because it happens at like 7 in the morning, and I can't wake up that early unless it's for work.
Yeah, we got Wimbledon. That's going to be starting up soon, and then we got the U.S. Open in a couple of months, so that'll be pretty neat. But yeah, so that was unless do you have anything that pops your tarts this week or no?
What pops my tarts is when a league makes a decision in the middle of the year, which causes a bunch of injuries. We didn't even talk about sticky stuff, Ryan, because Major League Baseball is in a, get this, sticky situation right now for their rule change. Whether you believe in the advantage or not, to do it mid-season, to call it cheating or not, whatever, to do it mid-season like this is not so great. That's what pops my tongue.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. It's honestly, I think part of it is just, I think Major League Baseball more than any other league just tries to actively sabotage itself. Like, it seems like almost weekly. So it just seems like something else wrong that they did that they thought was a good idea and it wasn't. You could just add it to the list. I said it in our group chat. I don't know where I'm at on the spider tack and other stuff like that, but in terms of outlawing the sunscreen and stuff like that pitchers use for grip, and not, it doesn't affect the spin rate of a baseball. It just helps them grip the ball, which is actually pretty slippery. If you've ever held an official Major League Baseball, even you, Darvish, I remember him saying the balls here are, more slippier. We're going to use that as a word, than the ones that they used where he played. So you just, if you want to do that in the off season, do it in the off season. Like the NFL makes rule change, every league you could say makes rule changes in the off season, but you can't make these rule changes right now when pitchers are accustomed to it. I mean, you can see the fatigue levels, you can see the effort levels of these pitchers in charts and graphs. Like it's not, as you alluded to, it's not a coincidence that as soon as you say, okay, you guys can't use this, you have Bieber, Scherzer, Glasnow. There's a couple names I'm forgetting that just suddenly had to go on the IL because they had issued DeGrom. That's not a coincidence. You have to give these pitchers time to adapt. You can't just do it in the middle of June and say, tough luck, get used to it. That's not good for your it's not good for your players.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of some methods for them to get a grip on the baseball, because I said this in the group chat, hitters have way too many advantages in today's game, right? I mean, they could use the pine tar, all the other stuff that's there in the batter circle and everything else, the on-deck circle, but in the dugouts as well. And there's too many advantages, I think, for hitters right now. And those baseballs are very slippery, right? Because they'll pack like the mud on there, but when dirt and mud dries out, that gets really slick, right? For anyone who has went to like a summer camp at some point or really anything else, if you get like, Ryan's getting, a little example here. So it's slick,
is an official Major League Baseball. It was a foul ball I got at the Trenton Thunder game a couple weeks ago. Just holding it now, a baseball that was used. There's like, there's scuff marks on here and everything. You can see where the ball hit the bat hit the ball. I don't know. It's difficult for me to kind of get a grip on this. Like, I can't imagine you're a pitcher throwing, mid 90s, high 90s with all these, different pitches that they throw trying to get a grip on this thing. It's not easy. And that's just me saying it.
Especially in the summer, in some places close to 100-degree heat, where there's not a lot of moisture. And first off, them trying to take on the sun with no sunscreen, I think, is really comical in itself. But for those who, Ryan must have got a lot of dried up dirt on his hands right there. He's using some sanitizer. What was I even saying? For those who really want like insight on it, the whatever network does Dodger games, Spectrum or something, Spectrum LA, they interviewed Trevor Bauer on their pregame show. He really gave some good insight on it. I agree with basically what he said, right? I'm all for leveling the playing field, but to even just rule out sunscreen or stuff like that, I mean, you got to create some moisture on the ball because, again, dried up dirt and mud is really, really, really slick and hard to grip. It really is. Again, like rethink your summer camp days or something, or your baseball days when it dry. That's the perfect example. When it used to dry up on your cleats, Ryan, it wasn't. It was pretty slick, right? I mean, it would be hard to get off. You would have to get moisture to wipe it off. I'm for some kind of grip because I think I really don't like baseball games that end 12-10 and take 4 hours because that in some ways counteracts everything they're trying to do to speed the game up, right? Because you're going to give so many more advantages to hitters. You're going to have so many more runs, so many more walks because you can't grip the baseball and control it as well. And then you're going to be looking at 4-hour games. The Red Sox game last night was like 10-8 or something in that range. I can't remember. The past 2 nights, and they both went close to 4 hours. That counteracts everything you're trying to do to speed the game up. That's what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up that popped your tarts because that was a good thing that that was a big news story that we need to talk about. By the way, I kind of realized that it might be confusing for some people asking, why would he have a Major League Baseball at a AAA game? AAA uses the official Major League Baseball. AA and below use their own minor league ball. So that's how I'm able to kind of use this as an example. But yeah, MLB once again shooting themselves in the proverbial foot, making a decision that nobody seems to like. What a surprise. That was this week's edition of Best Available Podcast. I'd like to think... I was going to say, I really wish that the next time we record this, we could talk about what happened in our mini golf match, but that won't happen. But hopefully at some point we're able to talk about it. Hopefully like before September would be nice. But my opponent might keep ducking me. I don't know. That's a possibility. The next time we record this, it will be summer, which is nice. First day of summer fast approaching. So do you have any parting words before we say goodbye for another week?
Not really. No, just watch some soccer. Really good quality stuff going on across the pond, as people like to say. Over in Europe. Yeah, I don't have anything. Enjoy the weather, and hopefully we'll get the mini golf match in. Because I think it might be starting to even out. I think Glenn might be starting to get a little antsy. He also put a curse on Philadelphia sports, Ryan, so real tough luck for you there. You lost out on your opponent, and now you have a curse from Glenn Denegris on your sports teams.
Yeah, I said it in the group chat. The city's sports teams have been cursed long before he even was around. So we'll catch you guys again next week on Best Available Podcast. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your week.